Hi, welcome to the game of ISO. We have prepared a video for you to help you to understand the roles in an ISO organization, as well as to help you see how you fit in and what you should expect from your ISO system. I'm Deborah Hampton. I have my PE in quality, and I also have been a lead auditor for over 20 years. So I am ready to provide you with some information that I have learned about ISO management systems. Let's dig in. Hi, this is the game of ISO. It's a video about who does what, when, in an ISO management system. The focus of us defining these items is to help you to simplify your ISO management system so you can clarify your expectations. I'm Deborah Hampton. I am your instructor. I have my PE in quality. I have been working since 1975 in factories. Since 1984, I have been actually independent, helping companies build foundations for their future, simple systems that are effective. I've been a lead auditor for over 20 years. What I want to do is give you some of the knowledge that I have learned over time. First of all, what is ISO 9001? What is ISO? First of all, it is proven practices, proven prescriptions. They were so proven until they became the standard method of approach to manage your business. It is not leading edge thinking. It is standards established many years ago. It is internationally recognized and expected. The fun part to me is the need for a standard manifested in World War I. It came about as guns and hardware were not consistent on the battlefield. So if they were interchangeable, it would have been better for the soldiers. Quality principles were born from this need. This evolved from 1939 to 1987 into what has become the ISO 9001 standard. There are now hundreds of standards that we can use internationally to help make sure that we are following best practices. As of 2015, ISO standards became very similar. They all have 10 clauses. The first clause tells us the scope of the standard and tells us what the purpose is of that particular standard. Clause 2 tells us about normative references, meaning things that we can use to help support our knowledge. And then 3 are terms and definitions that we will need to understand the standard. Clause 4 through 10 are auditable. Third-party auditors look at us and see if we are following and if we know the context of our organization. Auditors also look at our leadership qualities and know if they're meeting the requirements of the standard. They continue with, are we planning the system to mitigate risk? Do we have support processes in place? These clauses help us to form a system that makes us effective. The 2015 version of standards, their focus changed. They began to focus on risk-based thinking, process-based approach, and data-driven organizations. Risk-based thinking is that we think about what could go wrong before we start work. We try to mitigate what could go wrong before it happens. So we look at the risk and we make sure that we have mitigated them and prevented the risk from occurring. It also goes to what kind of opportunities do we create if we use risk-based thinking. If we solve those risks, what opportunities can we make for our organization. The process-based approach gives us a consistent and predictable method. It helps us to become more effective, more efficient. It helps us know that our activities, our tasks are understood, and we assign roles and responsibilities. We make sure with a process-based approach that we are able to understand how our system and its processes interact. Our teaching today is based on the Auditing Practices Group, and they define processes for us. They say that if we're going to have a process, we should map it in some way so that we are identifying the pieces of the process. We diagram the processes to show how they are planned. An example of a map might be a process sheet. Some of you may be familiar with that. A process map, which is what we primarily use. IT workflows, they also map the flow. And a turtle diagram could also be used. Documented information could be defined in a software program, such as an ERP system. Why are we mapping these processes? We want to clarify the steps, their sequence, how they interact with others, resources needed, and how we're planning to monitor, measure, and how improvement is captured. Process maps are a tool to communicate your expectations. Processes, unless they are defined, are left to occur at their own progress. Here's an example of diagramming of a process. It shows who does what when. This is an example of a process map. If you notice, there are 3 functions that are involved in this process. Receiving's involved, purchasing's involved, and accounting. When the components arrive on the receiving dock, our process map tells us what the person in receiving does. It also tells them what they do if what is received is not correct. If it is not correct, they get purchasing involved. If it is correct, they see what they can do, they put it away, and they forward their information to accounting. The process map also tells us when we are going to monitor and measure, which in this case we would be monitoring and measuring supplier process. Every process has inputs, every process has tasks performed on those inputs, and every process creates outputs. When your risks are known, you have mitigated those risks by task, you have monitored and measured, you are going to have an effective and an efficient process. We have defined 5 necessary positions in the ISO management system. First of all, we need a quarterback. We need an ISO management system specialist, someone that knows the rules, they know the requirements, and they can communicate those and help lead us as an organization. We also need managers to direct our organization. In our positions, we see those as like the coaches that are coaching the team in where we need to go. We also have team captains, those process owners who lead us and they are our subject matter experts. They tell us what we need to do in our processes in order to make sure our processes are effective and efficient. The 4th position is our audit program manager. They're kind of like the manager for the football team. They make sure that we're all following the expectations. They kind of clean up behind us, kind of help guide us. And then we have an improvement process coordinator or manager. They manage our change. They're similar to what we would expect of special teams. So think about our different systems, think about our different standards, think about the different positions. A little bit about that ISO management system specialist. Again, the type of person that you want for this position is an expert on the standard. You want them to be someone who has the qualities to facilitate. They're a teacher. They're a trainer. They're someone knowledgeable in many disciplines. They know a little bit about business. They know a little bit about purchasing. They know a little bit about engineering. They have an understanding of hazmat. They understand the things we need to know in our system to make sure that we are meeting all of the requirements of our people and our interested parties. That ISO management system specialist has to be a leader. They need to exude leadership in how they communicate with others. They're very detail-oriented, able to manage the details of the system, but they are focused on the big picture. A second position we talked about is the manager's position. Top managers know the issues and the interested parties, and those are described to us in Clause 4.1. They also know the interested parties. Those are coming from 4.2. 4.1 and 4.2 feed into 4.3, which is the scope of our organization, and they figure out what processes we need. They then think about Clause 6.1, the risk to those processes and the organization. They plan the system using a process approach to mitigate risk, and they plan what we monitor and measure about the organization, and they help us to drive improvement. Managers really are the key. That expectation for accountability and improvement changes the culture in the organization. We also have process owners, and process owners define the requirements. They become our subject matter expert for our process that they are managing. They know the requirements for their process as well as the requirements for how that process must interact with others. Just a little bit about management review, which top managers will be involved in as well as process owners. The top manager is truly the person who should preside over the management review. It is their review of the system, but they have to expect on others, other team members, other process owners, other managers to help present the information so that we can review our system and make sure that it is headed in the right direction. Our ISO management system specialist is the one that is going to help us prep for this management review, and also is going to help us record our decisions and our actions from that review, and to distribute the record of the review. The audit program coordinator, the audit program manager, they are the folks that determine what processes we are going to audit when. They take care of training our auditors. They make sure our auditors are doing a great job. They communicate what they found during the audit, and they facilitate the closure of audits. They need good communication skills, and they need to be studying those leadership skills so that they can function well in their role. The improvement process coordinator is the person who is managing and tracking the improvement projects that we put into our systems. For example, that improvement project might be an opportunity to rebuild a section of our plant. Our improvement process coordinator would track our program and make sure that we have someone assigned and tracks the actions. They don't perform the work, but they are the ones that management could see all of their improvement processes that are going on. They would know those. And if they're getting in trouble, they see a process that's not really functioning or a corrective action that's not being addressed, then they're going to escalate as necessary. They're a very detail-oriented person, but they also can see that big picture. We offer training for all of these positions. So we've talked about the 5 positions. Now, what do they do? So we've got our players in place, our positions in place, but what do we use as our playbook? The standard is the rule book. It's not the playbook. The standard are the rules. The playbook is what we do. To most organizations, the thing that you should do to have a playbook is have a daily or a weekly report out on the items that are monitored and measured. You then want to have a periodic monthly, say, review where you look for trends in what you are monitoring and measuring and in your objectives. You want to make sure that you are reacting to those trends, taking correction or making corrective actions to make improvement whenever there is a trend that is going in the way that you don't want it to go. You also, this playbook would require you to manage those changes to ensure the integrity of the management system, that it never gets lost. One more thing, there's required documented information that every standard has. Every standard has required documented information that must be retained and maintained. We want to make sure these are called out on the process maps. And another way that we can mitigate the risk that we might miss some required documented information is to have a list of required documented information and document where it is. We've got an example of these required documented informations for most of the standards on our website, so feel free to go there and load those down. Knowing what is the required documented information, that should be really the responsibility of the ISO management system specialist. In summary, in an ISO management system, we're going to have 5 positions. All 5 positions are very important to us. We have an ISO management system specialist. There are top managers. There are process owners. There is someone that is coordinating our audit program, and there is our improvement program. These folks diagram processes to clearly communicate their expectations. Then we have audits to ensure those expectations are followed, and we have a continual improvement to consistently provide a product or a service to our customers and other interested parties that exceed their expectations. In review, top managers they know the issues in the interested processes. They identify the processes they need. They look for risk. They find the opportunities. And they lead us through the objectives they set, and they ensure that we meet those objectives. Process owners become the subject matter expert for that process. They learn it. They look for what they can do to improve it. And they report out how that process is doing per the playbook. The last 3 positions, the audit program manager is ensuring that we are following the expectations of the system. They're making sure that all the audits occur. There's an improvement process coordinator that's tracking our progress and making sure that processes are being improved, that if escalation is needed, and they manage change. The ISO management system specialist is that last position that we talked about. It is the one that if you have any questions about how your processes work, they would be the persons that you would go to. 5 positions, living by a playbook, driving continual improvement. We have more trainings for each of the 5 positions. Each one of them gets into a deeper delve of what you need to do in your position. Thank you for attending. We hope you will join us in taking the video that applies to the specific position that you have been assigned to. Thank you again for attending.